Hey everybody, Michael Snyder, California Weather Watch. Today is December 13th, and right now we are looking at the infrared satellite imagery. You can see the state of California to the right. Here goes our next storm system. There you can see this frontal system weakening as it moves into the Pacific Northwest. But this storm is going to take up residence here off the coast and bring a few possible rounds of precipitation to the state of California. Another storm is going to be on the heels of that one as well. Then we'll take a look at the extended forecast. We've been talking about it for a few days now. Powerful jet stream poised to rip across Pacific Ocean and point right at the west coast of North America. Now, taking a look at the National Weather Service, Los Angeles, California, they mentioned the northeast winds here. We're going to have some elevated fire weather conditions, and the gusty winds will be ongoing. But then they also mentioned the return to some possible precipitation as we go through next week. These probabilities are going to be changing over the next few days. And this just a quick update here with the minor coastal flooding on Wednesday for some of the Bay Area and some of the coastal areas up towards Northern California as well. This goes on in through the day today, but some high tides are out there. It's a good thing we don't have a storm ongoing currently. And this is this day in SoCal weather history. Check it out. Back in 67, a cold storm, 1995, big ocean swell in 2009, another winter storm there. So things can start to get crazier across Southern California at this time of the year. And we may just start to do that as we go through the end of December. Now, taking a look at 925 millibars, about 2,500 feet in the atmosphere is the state of California. You can see Nevada is here. See the offshore component going on as we go through the day today. Again, some increased fire danger here across some of the areas. You're dealing with these offshore winds, low relative humidities, and you can see the north wind coming down across the area as well. And you'll see this goes all the way in through Friday, and then the storm starts to take residence off the coastline here, and then we switch things up more southerly and start to bring the precipitation chances into the state, which we're going to be looking at here in a moment. But quickly looking at Southern California, this is the North American model. It's a high-resolution model. This is hot off the presses. And you can see some of these gusty winds going on across the higher terrain. It's not, and through the gap areas, it's not a very strong Santa Ana wind event, but it is notable. Low relative humidities can be a problem with the fire danger, especially. And you can see we kind of get a pickup in these winds as we go through tomorrow night on in through Friday morning, as you can see. Then we finally start to relax the gradient probably as we go towards the weekend and that storm system approaches. And if you guys want a nice, affordable home weather station, this thing has an ultrasonic anemometer. It's very accurate, and the thermometer is great on it too, all solar powered and wireless. Stores all the data for you in the cloud. It's got a haptic rain gauge there. It's pretty cool. Now, taking a look at the GFS, this is this morning's hot off the presses on the left versus yesterday afternoon's on the right. So we're looking at 18,000 feet, 500 millibars up in the atmosphere, and you'll clearly see our storm developing off the coastline here. Pretty good model agreement in the short term. This is going to bring a couple rounds of precip to the state, move up across Pacific Northwest, and kind of merge with this next lobe moving into California. And you can kind of see the differences between some of these runs, but this one was more of an outlier here. Most of the models do have the storm system being more dynamic for California, and you kind of see that hang out for a few days there. And if we scroll way off into the extended, you can see the jet extension start to move across Pacific, and actually models are increasing the speed of this system here, bringing it in a little bit quicker as we start to get towards New Year's Eve. Not New Year's Eve, but Christmas Eve. So anyway, well, that's what we'll be watching over the next few days as well, that much advertised jet stream ripping across the Pacific Ocean. Look at the GFS ensemble mean on the left versus it on the right. This is last night's run. Same thing, 18,000 feet, kind of checking out the pattern here. There goes the initial system. Then the second shot comes down here, and you can see last night's run actually trended a little bit further south. That would bring better precipitation amounts into the state of California, but you can kind of see that last night's or yesterday afternoon's GFS more of an outlier with bringing that more into the Pacific Northwest. And then we scroll off into the future, and you can clearly see that troughing starting to arrive here, and powerful subtropical jet stream moving towards the west coast of North America, as it's been showing that for a few days now. Now here's the European. Let's see what it has to say. This is yesterday afternoon's run. Good agreement in the short term. Storm takes up residence off the coast here, kind of merges with this next one. And you can see this would be a pretty dynamic storm for California here, according to the European model, as you're going to be bringing some nice subtropical moisture out ahead of this system back into the state. So that would be an interesting scenario there, a little bit of a reinforcing shot. And then we start to get this powerful jet stream just tearing across the Pacific Ocean, pointed at the west coast of North America. These details are going to be flipping and flopping a little bit here back and forth, depending on who's going to get what. I mean, this powerful jet could point at the Pacific Northwest. It could target Oregon, Northern California, or it could target Southern California. Those are the details we're going to try to be working out here over the next few days. Now, taking a look at the spaghetti chart here, we're looking at about 30,000 feet. You can see San Jose and Los Angeles to the very far right there. There's Seattle. If we put this into motion, And then let me back up here a bit, because you can kind of see in the short term, we have a good idea of where these wind speeds are. But as we start to go out in the forecast, you can see why we call this a spaghetti chart, because each one of these is a different ensemble run. The European runs 50 of them. So you can see all the little individual lines of those ensemble members. But there's our storm system, the initial one here. Pretty good model agreement. You can see it clearly in the spaghetti mess out there. And then the next one comes here. You can see, of course, as we go off into the future, confidence not quite as high, but still showing that storm system there. And as we scroll up into the extended, look at the red line start to emerge from the left of the screen. They're showing that very powerful jet stream moving across Pacific Ocean and pointing right at somewhere here towards California or maybe Oregon. And we'll see how that develops over the next few days. But it's been showing it for a while. All models are in agreement with that jet extension moving all the way across the ocean. Now, looking at yesterday afternoon's European model, this is 6-hour precipitation. And you can see the weak front moving into the Pacific Northwest. Storm system develops out here. Fairly dynamic storm, but it's going to be far enough away where it's not going to have huge impacts, at least initially. But then as we scroll through Sunday, you can see some of this precipitation moving up over the state. And the European continues to show some of that activity going all the way down through Southern California. Pretty good couple of rounds for Central and Northern California as well. Next storm system rolls in here, and look at some of these precipitation amounts. These are just 6-hour totals here. So you could be talking some issues with some localized flooding even if this were to develop. And so we're going to be watching closely here. And then as we scroll off into the future, you can see the jet stream and some of these atmospheric rivers starting to point at the west coast of North America here. More on that here, of course, over the next few days. You don't want to get too caught up in that kind of time frame. You're looking at almost 2 weeks out. Looking at the total precipitation in inches, this is yesterday afternoon's European. This is similar to the deterministic, but you can see bringing some nice rounds of precipitation here as we go on. This would be through Monday night here, and we scroll off with the next storm comes here and brings some big amounts across Southern California, at least according to the European model here. And you can see, yeah, I mean, not bad here. As we're going on through the end of next week, this would be some impressive totals. Would be a big pattern change here for the state of California. And if we scroll out far enough, you can kind of see some of that atmospheric river activity moving back into California. Purely fantasy at this point. But now looking at the ensemble mean for total precipitation. So we're not cherry picking anything here. This is just an average of all the 50 ensemble members. And you can see bringing pretty healthy amounts all the way down through Southern California, coastal areas, Northern California, the Sierra Nevada. Everybody getting in on the action here according to the European as we scroll out through the 2-week time frame. This is total precipitation in inches on the hot off the presses a GFS, the American model. And if we scroll towards the weekend here, so looking on into very early Sunday morning, some of this precipitation starting to occur along some of the coastal areas. Now we go on into Sunday afternoon, some of the central coast, the Bay Area starts getting in on Sunday night into Monday morning. And you can see it does bring some precipitation for Southern California. This would be Tuesday late morning here. And then that next round potentially bringing more precip down across Southern California. Big amounts for the Sierra Nevada, some of which would be falling as snow also, which we're going to take a look at here in a moment. So you can see pretty active period starting to shape up here in some of the model runs. This is the GFS total snow, Kuchera ratio in inches. The Kuchera ratio tries to take into account the lower levels of the atmosphere temperature rather than just grabbing a 10-to-1 snow liquid water precipitation equivalent. So as we scroll through here, you can see, look as we go on in through, this starts to show up Sunday night on into Monday. And then that secondary round here as we go on into the mid portion of next week. So we're looking at some pretty healthy amounts snow-wise. And if things line up just right, maybe some snow for the higher terrain of Southern California as well. Nevada getting a pretty good shot there. Northern Arizona also. And then, of course, we would get multiple rounds of going on into the future coming up. But we'll worry about that later. Now, looking at the GFS, we're all the way across Pacific Ocean. Japan to the far left here. There's the Hawaiian Islands. We got Alaska right here. And there's the state of California. So put this into motion. You can see the initial storm system forming here, spinning off the coastline. Starts to fill and moves north, but gets reinforced. And then the secondary system right here in this troughing, right off the coast of California. And look at that jet extension here as we start to move on in through next week, ripping across the Pacific Ocean. And that would bring some stormy weather to somebody here along the west coast. So that's definitely something worth watching. Models have been locked into this solution here for several days. High confidence in this jet extension coming across the Pacific Ocean at this time. Here's the 6 to 10 day temperature outlook. So this is the 18th through the 22nd here, not quite to Christmas Eve just yet, but you see the above average conditions across much of the lower 48. Here's the 6 to 10 day precipitation probability outlook. Definitely a bullseye there in California, starting to include more of Nevada and Arizona as well. well. This is the 8 to 14 day. This goes all the way towards the day after Christmas here. So yeah, we do have some above average precipitation potential incoming here, and risk of heavy precipitation all the way through the day after Christmas. And you can see up and down the West Coast, kind of bullseyed here, who's going to get the best of it. That's what we're going to be determining over the next few days. Risk of heavy snow, you can see Sierra Nevada included all the way up through the Cascades and the Intermountain West also. Risk of high winds also can't be ruled out all the way up and down the West Coast at this time. Now, this is something interesting here because the European does this extended run every single day that goes out 46 days. So this is total precipitation in inches. And you'll see finally the storm system rolls in here as we go through Sunday, and then starts to bring some precipitation amounts. Southern California, the European wants to kind of nail Southern California here. And then we scroll way off. We're on to early January here. Now we're scrolling one day at a time. And look at some of these precipitation totals. We've got a very strong signal for some active weather going on in through January. Of course, take it with a grain of salt when we start going off into these ranges, but this is a classic. This has got a La Nina or El Nino signature all over it here with an increased jet stream here. Of course, you got the warm water down there across the Pacific, strong Gulf of Alaska low, and we'll look at that in a little bit more detail here in a moment. But I wanted to show you the 7-day running precipitation anomaly here as we go through. Now, this is Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, one at a time. You can kind of see the 7-day running anomaly total here. Very impressive for the state of California all the way in through mid-January. And then actually a little period shows up there below normal precipitation there for a portion of January, but then that kind of goes away as well as we scroll on through. This is always kind of fun to look off into the extended forecast. Now the 46-day precipitation anomaly, again, kind of a fantasy forecast here, but you can clearly see the signal we're dealing with as we go towards the end of January. I mean, the entire state of California well above average, except for maybe the tiniest sliver of southeast California there. And if we look far across the Pacific Ocean here, you can see the Hawaiian Islands. Look at that signal there for precipitation anomaly, including California there. Big deficit in turn across some of the Cascades of Washington, Oregon, and western BC. Now, this is looking at what the 500 millibar chart would look like here on that extended run here. We're having some serious fantasy forecast fun here this morning. Now, taking a look at the Hawaiian Islands, there's California here, and here goes our initial storm system there. It gets reinforced, as you can see, and then that jet extension arrives across Pacific, and man, it does not let up. Look at this, just round after round of storms showing up in the extended forecast. And of course, we have to take this with a grain of salt because any kind of difference here in the setup could target the Pacific Northwest, or it could target California even more. So yeah, you can kind of see that classic El Nino signature here with the strong Aleutian low or Gulf of Alaska low, powerful subtropical jet stream pointed into California. And this goes all the way out towards the end of January. I mean, it just doesn't stop. You can't really draw it up any better than that if you like storm activity here across California. And this is looking at the actual 7-day running mean of that 500 millibars, 18,000 feet, and we roll it on through, and you can clearly see not much of an end in sight here as we scroll through the end of January. Stopped right there. And this is looking at 7-day running total snowfall across some of the Sierra Nevada underneath with these scenarios. And you can kind of see the 7-day running totals here just continue on in through January as well. So a little bit of extended forecast fun there. But yeah, we've got a couple systems that we're pretty confident in coming up, and that jet extension we have high confidence in as well. But the thing about it is that that jet extension could impact Pacific Northwest and leave portions of California still high and dry. That's what we'll be watching and trying to figure out here as we go on in through the next week or so. So anyway, yeah, some portions of the West Coast probably going to have a stormy Christmas here incoming. But anyway, hope you guys are liking these videos. Click like and subscribe. We'll do this again tomorrow, and I will talk to you guys then.